Let them work from home or demand they come to the office? Listen in as the two business guys mastermind on how to navigate the waters of letting your employees stay at home or demanding they come into the office. Enjoy. This business podcast, the two business guys mastermind, uncovers for you secrets and share tips and tricks to entrepreneurship as they mastermind on how to have startup, operational, and overall business success so that you can go on to get better results. Enjoy. So hey everybody, the two business guys are back and we are masterminding on the work from home trend and why in the heck Tim Cook of Apple is telling his employees that they have to spend some time at home. And I also want us to be able to talk a little bit about leadership, right? We're seeing some people that have kind of an autocratic leader tendencies, right? And then Rob is going to probably touch on, what makes a good leader, especially, and then how do you lead people that work from home? So Rob, this is what I'm reading, man. Every single thing is showing people are loving that work from home job. They're loving the idea that they can work online and from home. I mean, they're just loving this. Why in the heck is Tim Cook telling them you got to spend some time at the office?
That's a really interesting thing. And I've heard a number of different things because, first of all, a lot of the old leadership style, one of my mentors, Darren Hardy, talks about there's the 20th century leader and then there's the 21st century leader. And the stylings of the 20th century leader are very paternalistic. They're very autocratic. They're very kind of, I am in charge and you do what I tell you and I know how it's supposed to go, right? And what people are looking for is more of a participative and a charismatic leadership style. A lot of people are looking to be more self-leaders, and that's the 21st century model where you're actually having to teach people how to think versus what to do. But we're in this kind of crossroads. We've seen it, right? The Great Resignation. People are starting to make that change. And so I think to explain what companies are thinking about, because a lot of my peer group that do corporate consulting, we're dealing with this with a lot of people who are trying to figure out how to do hybrid models, how to figure things out, because there is a reality that there is a synergy that happens just from being around people, right? There's a lot of studies that talk about it, right? Your peer group, who you hang around, who you spend time around, who you allow to influence you, right? And so in a company, when you're trying to create a culture, when you have people that are all remote, you have less control over what are the inputs into those people. And while in the immediate time frame, you don't see, the decrease because of the added influences of friends and family and other people that they now get to spend more time around versus being in the work environment. It is definitely a factor. And this is, I think, what a lot of these owners and these, CEOs are afraid of, right? There's a fear of what happens if we lose our culture. What happens if people, are influenced and now the majority of our culture is decentralized, right? But that's that. And when I look at it, it's that classic case of command and control versus decentralized command. It's that classic example of, right, a lot of people, and a lot of people who love the idea of big government, of socialism, of people making decisions, right? This is that same mentality of we know that we can do it and we can make the decisions and everything can be good. And it's very interesting that big companies would be in that same vein. A lot of people think that it's just, related to government. And I've always been one of those people. I'm like, I love small just in general. And the main reason I love small is because small has to deal with reality. Small can't get lost in, right, its walls, right? Like when you got people that live in a castle with walls and a moat and all the rest of that, they can be really separated from the outside world and from the things that are going on. And so they don't have to deal with people as much. And that's what happens with a lot of these big companies. So you see this autocratic, authoritative leadership style. I mean, They didn't say we're looking at moving towards a policy. They didn't say we're really, excited about having people back. They said you will be back one day a week starting April. You will be back 2 days a week starting May, and then you will be back 3 days a week. I think something in June or something like that. And it's just like, I don't know. What do you think about that? Like, as somebody who has lived both worlds, you've been in the corporate space, having to clock in and be at the job site. What does that? How would you react? Not the Randy now who was like, I got my make money online strategies for days, but like, what would the old you have felt if you were in the workspace hearing that?
Oh man, listen, telecommuting is not new. Right? People have been doing it. If I had gotten a taste, and I remember back when, I was getting my degree in organization, I think it was a master's degree at the time, right? So I was getting a master's degree, and we had to go, and I had to drive to Kalamazoo to go, sit in a class, which is about 60 miles away. So I had to go to Kalamazoo one day a week, sit in a classroom, and do this degree. And, it's like, okay, I was doing it. It was no big deal. It was kind of 60 minutes away, but okay, right. And then I saw the last half of the degree could be taken totally and 100% online. I said, I'd never step into a classroom again. And I'm telling you, I did everything I possibly could. The next time I stepped in a classroom was to graduate. Right. And I tell you, it was liberating. I couldn't go on a cruise. I couldn't do a whole bunch of things that I wanted to do. Right. Let's say if I was taking a 2-week cruise or cruising somewhere, going somewhere. But then when they introduced the idea of being able to do this at the house or do it wherever, man, there were times, this is the funniest thing, because, when you're doing stuff, remotely, you're doing things via telecommuting or whatever, you just got to log in and you got to, answer some questions. You got to participate in the class. But I would be at Best Buy and all I had to do was log in, because I wanted to shop. I was doing some stuff, and I'm going to tell you, it was beautiful. It was beautiful. And the idea of being told what to do is one of the things that really started me thinking about, I got to get out of this 9 to 5, this or 5 to 11, whatever you work, 3 to 11. What's the normal? 7 to 3, 3 to 11, 11 to 7.
Yeah.
Get out of here. This is not working for me. So I started, thinking about and designing how my life could go with this whole idea of doing something online.
Yeah, no, right. And that's really powerful. Like you said, once people get the taste, because like it was forced upon everybody, and the company still existed. So the interesting thing to me is the way that it's being kind of rolled out. If I'm in the leadership space, right, one of the things that I'm looking at is I realized that for my culture, and Apple and Google, because Google was another of the companies that was like really pushing for their employees to be back. I think Google's gonna have their employees back by April 4th. And the interesting thing about that is, right, they're really intentional about the cultures that they create. They're really intentional about all the rest of that type of stuff. But that means that they pick certain types of people. Now, maybe it's in their algorithm that they pick people that only operate well when they're in the culture, but that doesn't make sense, because like Google has a policy where 4 out of 5 days you're working on Google stuff. 1 out of 5 days you're just working on anything anyway. So I don't get, right, the memo that comes out and says you will be back. And I looked at some of the language that Tim Cook used, and it was like, none of it had to do with, we have looked at our productivity levels and our output levels over the course of the pandemic, right, and realized that remote working dropped our productivity by 20%. Like these are things that they have data to discuss, right? Like they have an entire department that looks at this stuff. That's their whole job, right? And I was just reading an article. We were talking about this offline. University of Chicago did a study, right? And they surveyed respondents, and this was from like May 2020 all the way through March 2021. And in the study, they found that 6 out of 10 workers reported being more productive working from home than they expected to be, right? Versus 14% who said they got less done. On average, the respondents' productivity at home was 7% higher than expected. 40% of workers reported that they were more productive at home during the pandemic than they had been when they were in the office, right? And the researchers conclude the work at home trend is here to stay. And they calculated that these working arrangements will increase overall worker productivity in the US by 5% as compared with pre-pandemic economy. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying this is right, because this is a survey of, maybe I think it was 30,000 individuals, but it was them doing self-reporting on their work. So you know how that is, right? I always think that, I'm the grass is always greener, right? That type of thing. But here's the key. Unless I have actual data that says, hey, y'all, I know that you like working at home. I know that the commute is there and all the rest of that. But even taking all those factors into account, here's what's happening to the company. We are this much less productive. So here's what we're going to do. For everybody that comes back into the company, you're going to go ahead and continue to be paid at your normal salary. For everybody that doesn't come back into the company, you're going to take a productivity bump or productivity, right? Like some sort of incentive, right? To say, you do what you want to do, but this is what's going to get paid. But instead, it's like this heavy-handed, big brother-esque, this is what the policy will be. And it's like,
man,
right? Like,
somebody else tried that and she's no longer with that company. Remember Marissa Mayer? When she took over Yahoo.
Yep.
One of the first things she said was, we need you in the office.
Mm-hmm.
I remember reading that. Now, this is like 2013, 2014-ish. And I said, she's not going to make it. Mm-hmm. Now, because she was so used to working 70, 80 hours, right? She had just had a baby, right? Or, either just had, or, so
she's a new mom. Yep.
Yeah. So she came in with that heavy hand, basically that autocratic leadership we talked about right now. That's not the qualities of a good leader as I see it. You got to take the temperature of what's happening, ask yourself questions, but it's that command and control that you talked about.
Yep.
I need to see you in the space, right? Because don't give me that culture stuff. Right now, the culture, and look, this is the United States. Culture is making money, right? The culture is being more productive. Every indicator is showing this remote work approach got people more productive.
Exactly.
I hire around the world, right? Pakistan, India.
Yep.
I was working with a guy from I can't even say the word Sri Lanka.
Sri
Lanka.
Sri Lanka.
I don't care, right?
Yep.
And I needed some graphic work. So I'm ecstatic with the work, and I'm working with somebody that says they're from New York, right? and they got this, picture of themselves up, right? A lady, and I don't know. Every time I talk to her, I just kind of get the feeling that that's just like a stock pretty picture put. That's not who I'm really working.
No, I got you. I'm in the same
come out. I'm like,
I'm in the same space. My entire team is remote and all over the country. I got people in Chicago. I got people in Memphis. I got people in North Carolina. I got people in San Antonio, Texas. Like, I got people in Atlanta. That's the way that it's so funny because what I was about was culture. I wasn't about finding people in Grand Rapids, greater metropolitan area that could do the work. I was about finding people that could do the work, because I'm a, Marine Corps, decentralized command. The whole idea is you try to push command down to the lowest level possible. In the Marine Corps, if two Marines are together, one of them's in charge, and that's the way it works, right? There's no idea of, I didn't know. No, that's not how it works. You're always expected to be a leader. You're always expected to be thinking about what the objective is. You're always expected, right? One of the things we talk about is know yourself, seek self-improvement. That's a maximum of being a Marine. So in that space, command and control is necessary for communication. It's not necessary for actual execution. You don't need people kind of in your ear buzzing all the time and doing all that type of stuff. It's that idea of go out, do your job. Now, I think that in those areas, one of the interesting things that I have been looking at, and this is one of the things the study talks about, is commute time, right? I think this is something that nobody's paying a lot of attention to. The average American, or at least in the studies that I was looking at, the average person was commuting 54 minutes a day. Now you just think about that, right? That commute time changes so much of your day, right? Because if you want to pick your kids up, right? normally their school, if you're commuting 54 minutes on average a day, that's 30 minutes to 30 minutes from, the kid's school is normally 5 to 10 minutes from your house, but it's 20 to 30 minutes from your job because it's 5 to 10 minutes from your house, right? Like depending on if it's in the same direction as your job or the opposite direction as your job, now you got 30, 40, 20, 30 minutes. So, and their school times are normally not overlapping with work times. So there's stuff that you just wind up not being able to do just because you got to commute to work. And now that's an hour to go and do something at the house and back. Whereas if you at home, there's so many more things. I can run to the store. I can run here. I can run there. And it's a 5, 10, 15-minute commute and I'm back at work, right? It increases productivity in so many different realms, right? It's one of the reasons why with most of my coaching clients, I don't do in-person coaching, right? Even though we can go into the center where we work, right? And do in-person coaching. The main reason I don't do it, for me, it's a 25-minute commute. And for my clients, right? For the coach, for the mentees, it's a 15, 20-minute commute. Whereas if they can just pop on their phone, if they can just pop on their computer, they can do that anywhere. So they can keep doing their day, carve out the hour that we're going to coach, and then get back to whatever it is they got to do in their day. And it makes it so much more productive, right? And that's the thing that I looked at because I knew that I could go sit somewhere for 5, 6 hours so that I don't have to commute. I don't have to move except for where, but everybody's got to come to me.
I tell you, Rob, I went out and I was shopping for some clothes. Right now, my taste in clothes has changed because before it was always, I had to make sure I had some blue, I had to have some black, you know what I mean? I had to make sure I had a tie. I literally threw away all but I think, and I had 30 ties. I threw away all of them except maybe 3. Just in case I had to go somewhere, right? I look at my suits and I go, man, when would I need those? So this, and I'm not feeling bad about it, but when I had to go out and buy some clothes is because, well, I got to show up for some things now, right? I've got I'm being, told or asked or whatever to show up in class to do some teaching and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, I'll do this stuff. But I mean, it's changing things. And I used to save just a ton of money. You know what I mean? I might have my compression pants and shorts on below, right? Because I'll do my whatever I'm doing and then go take a walk or run, stuff like that, right? So it was that, it was legitimate. It was some legit work from home opportunities. And the mere idea that you will now come in and tell me that I got to come back to the job. I like your idea. Let's just, hey, if you're at home and you're more productive, you're going to get more money. And it was some company, I can't think of who it was, that says we're making this stay at home opportunity permanent.
Yep. Facebook is like that.
Was it Facebook? They was like, we're making it permanent.
Yeah, because Mark Zuckerberg, he liked working from home. He was like, everybody, they're actually increasing and encouraging working from home. And I guess technically now it's Meta, but you get the drift. But I mean, the thing about it, and this is funny because, from a leadership perspective, for those of our small business owners that are out there that are wondering about how do I deal with this? How do I get employees? Because nobody wants to come into the office, all the rest of that. I think that the big thing that you want to pay attention to is this. You really have to start looking into why you need people in the office. Because there's certain jobs, like one of my clients, they own a couple of wing restaurants, right? You need people in the restaurant to make wings, right? Like that's not a work from home opportunity, right? It's not one of those types of things, right? So that makes perfect sense. And so you got to find people that are comfortable coming in and you got to figure out how to make that appealing, right? But if you have office work, if you have people that are doing reports, like my executive assistant who does so much in my business lives in Chicago. Her entire job is remote, but we're tied into everything and we talk regularly. And so she's able to do everything that she needs to do from Chicago, right? But what that requires is it requires you knowing what it is that you need from people. And this is one of the things I talk about in my book. One of the reasons why people struggle with delegation in general is because we do a very poor job of setting expectations and making sure our expectations are reasonable given the circumstances that we're dealing with, right? And so it's really important that you look at what are the obstacles in the way to the person that you are hiring to do whatever job, accomplishing that job, at least at a competent level. Now, we ain't saying they're going to do it like you, not yet. right? But what's the obstacle to them doing it competently? And if you have to be there so that you can remember to talk to them whenever, then you're the obstacle. And you need to start working on that.
You are
right?
the
Like,
bottleneck.
exactly. You're the bottleneck. That's where, I got one of my clients right now. He's for the next 6 weeks, his whole job is to write an SOP a day for a job action a day. He's taking a half hour every day, and all he's doing is going through a particular job, something he's doing. If it's quoting, if it's, production, fabrication, whatever it is. And his whole thing is he's got to write out what the steps are. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be complete. It doesn't have to be thorough. It's just got to be enough so that it's out of your head. Because once you have that, right, over 6 weeks, doing that every day, that's 30 different jobs that he has now gotten out of his head. He's got a manual now that he can now bring somebody on and say, hey, these are the things that we need to do. And now he can train them. He can work with them, that if they go and try to do the job and it's not right, now they can go through the steps and say, okay, you did this, you did this, you did this. Let's see what's missing. Boom. And fix it and add it right on the spot. But he doesn't even have to add it. The other person can add it. Right? He doesn't have to make it better. The other person in communication with him can do all the note taking and everything else. But now you got a living document instead of just conversation. Now that person can go work when you're on vacation. Now that person can go work when you're not there, when you're not thinking about it. And that takes a tremendous load off of your shoulders. And that's just one of the things, right? One of the tips that I work with entrepreneurs and we do this in corporate, right? With managers and with senior level managers, like, what are you hiring these people to do, really? Do you even know? How do you measure it? How do you know if it's done well? Right? All of these questions. So that's one thing I would highly suggest to those of you all who are struggling to get people that want to come into the office. Look at getting those jobs out of your head. Take the most important job that you need done and just take a half hour and brainstorm. What are the action items that the job needs to do, and what are the steps to completing those action items?
I think that's tremendous, man. And that's business owners, as you're listening to this, entrepreneurs, as you're listening to this, he just infused a little bit of what Michael Gerber talked about anyway, right? In E-Myth Revisited. He talked about from the start, you start building out what the standard operating procedure is, the SOP. You start writing down what this job entails, your job, because probably you're in that thing if you're brand new, especially, and you haven't worked out how am I going to pay someone else. He talks about that, really put it into a structure where you can replicate this 5,500 times, right? You can go and make a whole bunch of a whole bunch of companies. I literally had a coaching call with a client yesterday, and she makes the most delicious pies, right? And cakes and stuff like that. And she, kept saying, I feel stuck. And I says, because you're doing the business.
Yeah.
I says, you have not put together the how to show someone else to do what you do. Well, they're not me. I says, they don't have to be you.
Right. Because as long as they got to be you, you don't got a business, you got a job.
And then also that other part of that is that, and you have a fool for a boss, right? A psychopath, I think he says, for a boss. You know you. So
no days off.
Exactly. You can't go on vacation. You're right there, doing the job. And I thought about this for some of these jobs. People are making some really good money, but they are the business. In class recently, I used the example of my carpenter, and beautiful guy. He would. Prices were always right. He could go into old houses when I was doing, rehabbing old houses, and just, do some wizardry. But his back blew out, and there went the business. And I would call him up and say, hey man, listen, tell me how you did it, or just, kind of get an idea how you do it. I'll go hire your crew. And it's like, no. He was a little bit on the old school side, right? Where it was like, no, I have to watch him. I have to see him. I have to do it. No, you don't.
Exactly.
You just got to be the conduit between, the jobs and your customers and your employees. Get yourself a crew leader. I mean, to me, it just makes so much sense,
right?
That you can do everything. It's no longer just data entry from home.
Right. But it's one of those things. And I know we want to, I want you to, after this point, kind of go into some of the different things that people can do. Again, your specialty, making money from home so they can take advantage of this. But I want to talk to those business owners just for a little bit and remind you, like, one of the things that people struggle with a lot of times is when you're the one doing the stuff, right? They always say the best players make the worst coaches, right? And and a lot of that is because from a coaching perspective, there are different skills, there are different muscles that are necessary to be a good coach than there are to be a good player. To be a good player, oftentimes you tap into your intuition and you use your athleticism or whatever it is, and you just get the job done. You're an executor. But to be a coach, you have to be able to execute with somebody else's limbs, which means that you have to have an empathy. You have to have an ability to tap into what are the obstacles that they're feeling? What's the way that they're seeing the world? And oftentimes, from a player perspective, you see the way that people are seeing the world the wrong way as a competitive advantage, right? Michael Jordan had a competitive advantage against the other people that he played against because a lot of them were not trying to win. They were just trying to play, or, some of them were trying to win, but they weren't trying to do fundamentals well, or they weren't trying to work as hard or whatever it was, right? If you go back and watch Last Dance documentary, he goes into kind of his mindset and the fact that it was a win at all costs kind of mentality within the rules of the game, right? But that doesn't translate over to coaching because everybody doesn't necessarily have that mentality. And your job is to be able to take them from where they are and coach them to where you were. But so often we forget where we started, right? And for a lot of greats, they forget where they started because it was so long ago. Like, I've watched every Michael Jordan documentary that ever came out. So I remember from Come Fly With Me all the way through. And I remember, right, and this is back in the early days, so it was his parents talking a lot and his brother and his sister talking a lot. What they talked about was that competitive spirit in him was really built because his brother used to beat his butt all the time in basketball. It wasn't that he was just always competitive, even though in his mind, he remembers just always being competitive. That competitiveness grew because of the battles with his brother, and it locked into his psyche during that period of time. Now, if he could go back to what was happening then and what it felt like to lose all the time and what that change was for him, he would have a lot more insight into how to coach people up. But right, you've seen this as Michael Jordan as an owner, Michael Jordan as a mentor. People say he's one of the hardest people to work with because he's always demanding perfection. I will remind you, Michael Jordan did not make the varsity team his sophomore year in high school. So obviously, he has not always been a stellar player. I will remind you, Michael Jordan wasn't even the most highly recruited kid coming out of North Carolina when he graduated high school. Right? He wasn't even the number one kid on the University of North Carolina's basketball team coming out of high school. There was another guy that was Mr. Basketball in North Carolina. Now, he didn't wind up being that much longer, but nonetheless, right? These are the things to remember. Michael Jordan wasn't always Michael Jordan. Even in North Carolina's team, like Michael Jordan was good. And he then, sophomore, junior year was, most outstanding player of the year for the NCAA, but he had to grow into that.
Yeah.
A lot of entrepreneurs, it's important for you to go back to thinking about when you weren't good, not at your business, when you weren't good at that thing that you do in your business that makes you you. And a lot of times it's, well, I've just always done this. That's not true. Like, I need you to realize that reality, because that is going to be the stumbling block in the path of your delegation journey, is not being able to empathize with people that aren't good at what you do.
Oh man, that's right there. I love that. I love what you said there. Being able to empathize with, and then that other thing you said about you've got to go make it happen with somebody else's limbs.
You got to execute with somebody else's limbs.
That suggests a specific kind of leader in you, right? The key at the end of the day, you want execution.
Yes.
And I remember being in the office, man, and I'm thinking I didn't get a lot of work done. I mean, I drank coffee all the time. You know what I mean? I would go to some meeting, meet with the, manager over here. I would, be at somebody's desk shooting the shit with them. You know what I mean? And then I would sit down eventually and start working, and maybe 45 minutes of the day I got work done. And that's kind of I had read that somewhere that says about out of an 8-hour day, you get about 45 minutes of concentrated work done.
Mm-hmm,
that makes no sense to me. So everybody, as you're thinking about this, and you're thinking about what could you do, right? Of course, you've got all kinds of stuff, obviously online data entry jobs. You've got these side jobs, side hustles you could do from home. You got all this home-based work, freelance stuff. I mean, you can set up a nice little agency for yourself, a nice little business for yourself, go out and do a whole bunch of YouTube videos and say, yeah, I'm an agency now, a digital marketing agency. I'm this, I'm that, whatever it is. Start hanging your shingle out online, attracting clients that don't know what you do, but they just want results. So you can sit there and have this nice, cool, legit work from home job, be making some good money in your robe. Let's think about that now. I remember doing a couple of videos. I was in my robe, right? And I was saying that I wasn't feeling well, but because of the way I designed the business, it was still making money. Isn't that what you want? You want to go throw a load of laundry, in the washer. You can do that. Nobody knows. You want to take a nap in the middle of the day? Okay. I love it, man. Right. And if Tim Cook called me up today and says, hey, we're going to offer you X amount of dollars to come home or to come here and do this job, Tim, it's a no. Because I've enjoyed my freedom too long. Right. I've enjoyed the idea that I own my life. Look, Rob, I just wrote a book that says top ways to make a career out of work from home jobs. Top ways to make a career. So okay, let's make a career out of what you do. Let's stack the opportunities in front of you. And let's see if that can bring all of these good things, these good qualities in you out, right? Because when you go in the box, that might stifle your creativity because you got to be around folks and all that kind of stuff, right? Even a church. I got two good friends of mine that are pastors. Man, they told me that during the pandemic and, during the time that people were at home, that giving went up. Like, wait, what? Giving went up. So I said, well, why not totally 100% turn your church into an online deal? Right. And there's some people out there that started that way because that's all they knew and that's all they wanted to do. They want to travel, whatever. And they have successful ministries. But again, no, I want to see him. I want to control. I don't know. Pastors, what y'all doing? I don't know what's happening.
And remember, it's a skill set, right? Like a lot of people, again, are stuck in the 20th century mode. That's what we did. But the problem is that a lot of people don't realize that that's not what we've always done. Before the Industrial Revolution, before the mass migration to cities that happened really about turn of the century, 1900 to the 1930s, right before the Great Depression, most everybody worked at home and they went to town to go to market, to do that other type of stuff. And you had a couple of firms that were in town. That's where your main streets all over town came from. There was a couple of firms that did stuff for the whole town. But most everybody had a farm, had land, had something where they worked at home. And if they didn't work at their home, they worked at somebody else's home. Right. And this concept or this idea that, what we do is we go grab a 9-to-5. That's a new phenomenon. That's
and it's
literally
been trained in us, hasn't it?
Right.
I remember reading that.
It's been trained
us to come to a job.
Right. And it came in with, the modern education system. Like there's educational history. If you go back through it, look up Horace Mann, look up compulsory education, look up the history of how we got. Now, there were some benefits that came with this, right? The literacy rate in America spiked once we had compulsory education, once everybody was going to school, because Americans most people didn't know how to read. But now we're at the point where we're one of the most literate countries in the world. All these things happen. It was amazing. But it came with a contract, if you would. The reason why that schooling was there was in order to make it easier for families to go work in industrial factories, right? Kids are at school, then you can go to work.
Okay, Tim.
And that's why you look at 7 to 3. Why do you think that 7 to 3 were the hours, right? And 6 to 2 were the hours for factories? Because it made sure you got out of work when the kids got out of school.
See. All right, Tim Cook, you've heard it. You heard it from the Two Business Guys Mastermind. Everybody, comment on this. Tell us what you think. Subscribe to the channel. We want to see, you to see what we're putting out every single week. This is your call to action. And this is a place where you're going to find out these good things that we got coming down the pike. And I know when Rob and I rock out, our summit, our get together, our webinar, whatever it is, we're going to talk about these things. We're going to be showing you all kind of cool opportunities that you can put together, right? And Rob's going to bring in his book conversations and talk to the employers about, striving and thriving despite chaos, right? And I love this one book, one of your books, Rob, where you were talking about why people won't do their jobs. What was the actual title?
Why can't people just do their jobs, right? The question that I hear the most when I go speaking, right? And I talk to managers and I'm doing consulting, people like, why is it that people can't just do their jobs? So I wrote a book about it, and it really talks about, right? Like,
because they want to be at home. That's why.
Number one. But like you were talking about, Randy, sometimes we're the bottleneck as leaders. Sometimes we're the reason why people aren't doing their jobs, but we don't understand it. We don't see it. There's something, Peter Senge wrote this book called The Fifth Discipline, which is a phenomenal book. And it talks about systems thinking and systems theory. And one of the things that he talked about was, we don't see certain things because our perception is based upon what we're prepared to see. Right. And our language trains us, right? Like I watched a TED talk that was really awesome on this. It talks about how our language allows us to see certain things because it prepares our mind, right? You got the reticular activating system. There's a whole bunch of stuff in neuroscience about how you only see what you're prepared to see. And by using certain language, you actually become blind to certain things. And so a lot of our language around causality, right, blinds us to systemic causality. Right, to things, to there being a system loop, so that if I do this, then this happens, which makes me feel like I therefore need to do this. But really, it started with me doing this. And without getting esoteric in it, the main thing was there's a lot of us that are working as leaders that are not understanding the impact that we have on people's ability to do their job. We think that we have to find the right people. But it's just as important that you put the right people into the right system, because I tell my one of the analogies I give when I go speaking is, you can take a perfectly healthy seed, and if you put it in the refrigerator, it's not gonna bloom. Ain't nothing wrong with the seed.
Seed is fine.
If you put it in a greenhouse, it's gonna give you 100-fold. But you put it in a refrigerator, it's not going to bloom. Man, some of us are not creating a greenhouse environment, and we're expecting roses to grow through concrete. And like, it's a saying and it's a statement, and Pac put it down because it's so rare, not because it's the norm. And we're expecting rarity, right? We're expecting extraordinary behavior but not creating an extraordinary environment. So I just want to, give you all that idea. Some of the frustration that we're feeling is based on the environment that we're creating. And that one thing that I was telling you about, setting up, like Michael Gerber said, and the reason that I talk about doing it in 6 weeks is because a lot of times when you look at your business and you look at doing SOPs, it becomes very daunting to think, oh my God, I got to write all this down. But you'll be amazed at how much work you can get done if you just block off a half hour every day.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. You don't got to do a lot. Just
that's why I'm at 4 a.m. in the morning, right? It's not because I'm a bear, right? I mean, if you look at my chronotype, I'm a bear. Bears don't like getting up till maybe 7, 8, or 9. And days that I miss, and I get up at 7, 8, or 9, awesome day. Right? Awesome day. So because it seems to be in sync. But in order to get as much stuff as I want to get done, then at 4 a.m., because it is the solitude that allows me the focus, that then allows me the productivity, right? So business owners out there, think about this as you go out there and apply your leadership abilities into the workplace. I think, Rob, if I'm you, man, this what a category. You talk about from one of your books, thriving in chaos. And if the chaos is that people now want to be at home, putting together programs that speak just to this type of thing, I personally think would be great. I think you'd have two sides of the room coming, right? The people that want to still have leadership, but at the same time, they want that freedom.
Exactly.
And, bringing in all the statistics that show productivity is going up. And then you being able to say, okay, this is digital leadership, right? A title like that, digital leadership. Your next several books should be on this topic. How do you balance it out? Right. And it's a good segue from what you've already done anyway.
No, I don't disagree with you. I love it. And it's really step one in thriving in chaos, defining success. A lot of people don't know what good looks like. And when you don't know what good looks like, it's really hard to manage towards it, right? You can't improve what you can't measure.
I love that. Well, there it is, y'all. Y'all had it, right? We talked a little bit about this working from home, this whole thing around it, the flexibility that it is, introducing into people's lives, and the fact that they're not giving that up. I think you're going to have an even greater migration away from coming into office situations, which is going to affect you guys and young ladies in the real estate space, the commercial real estate space. Think about that now. The market has not absorbed what has happened. I'm at the house. If you're selling homes, building homes, you're building now with home offices for real, right? That place that people can go that's quiet. So when, if you notice, you hear kids in the background, you don't hear kids in this little room because that thing is tight. That's the kind of thing that if you're out there thinking of what to do next, what to build next, how can I add value into the marketplace? Not based on what I want to do, but based on what is happening. Speak to this. That's one of the reasons why I wrote the book, How to Top Ways to Make a Career.
There you go.
Jobs. I got it all in there, right?
Yeah.
And I have websites dealing with career, and I have websites dealing with starting businesses, and then kind of a hybrid of each. How do I go to a job, earn money enough to leverage a nice little business? That's what we're talking about, everybody. And that's all we wanted to bring to you.
Randy is that guy. So make sure you check it out, because trust, he can help you make whatever you're trying to make.
I do it all the time. Just got a call from, and we're going to let you guys go. We know you're busy. You probably want to get back to whatever you're doing in your spare bedroom, right? Here's something I was thinking about too, right? And I wrote this down in one of my ideas. I called it, it was like the room where you're going to make a lot of money, right? It was called You in a Room Making Millions, right? So I wanted to go make some millions first, right? I'm on my way. You in a room making millions. And what I did was I just took a little picture of my 10 by 10 room. And now, once I hit that mark, then I'll be able to say, this is how you can take your room. And I'm telling you, Rob, it was the whole room. The ideal is to have the whole room usable. So first thing I did was I painted a wall with some kind of expensive paint, but now that wall is a board for me. Because right now I got sticky notes everywhere and all that kind of stuff. I'd love to just be able to go and write on the wall a note, right? So I got this one whole wall. At first, what I was doing, I was buying, the boards, right? I was like, man, and I gotta, nail the things in. I said, this is a mess. But now if you're creating from your house in your room, how you can be in that thing making, thousands of dollars is making it totally 100% useful. We'll talk about that at another time, everybody. We just wanted to rock that out and hope that you take this stuff and be able to use it immediately in your job.
Yes.
Right. Immediately. Yes. Think about this. Call your company up and say, hey, listen, can I work from the house?
There you go.
What they say.
Yeah.
Hear that, Tim? Yeah. All right, everybody. We will talk to you on the next week as we come up with all these good stuff to bring to you. See you next time.
All right, everybody. Have a great one.